Hi, and welcome to another scrapbooking process video. I'm Tracy, and I'm starting with these two photos of my younger daughter's first day of school. I flashed really quickly at you my last layout, which is on my channel right now. You can just go back. It should be the one right before this, or maybe the one two before this. Anyhow, with that layout, I made a layout using a whole bunch of squares, and so I thought it might be interesting for my other daughter's first day of school to make a layout that's a similar design but uses circles instead of squares. So this layout is actually going to have the same title. It's using the same products, which is a hip kit from the month of August, and I'm just changing the squares for circles. So I have my circle cutter out here. It's a Cutter B circle cutter, and I really do like this circle cutter. There are a bunch of different circle cutter options on the market, but I particularly like this one. I already had a glass cutting mat. It does work exceptionally better on a glass cutting mat than it does on a regular self-healing mat. So that's something to keep in mind with that. If you do buy it, it's worth investing in a glass cutting mat if you don't have one already. So right now I'm looking through some of the papers that come in the hip kit from August, and I don't want to pick exactly the same patterns as I chose for my other daughter's layout, but I do want to use similar colors just because there are similar colors in the photos as well. So I'm picking out some papers here that are the same and some papers that are different and coordinate with the papers that I chose before. So that navy blue one with the pluses, I want to use those kites from the chipboard piece on this page. And I might as well start right off the bat with stamping and die cutting a square that it will coordinate with the stamped and die cut square on the other layout. So I used this paper, and I basically just picked a piece of that wood plank paper that was the wood plank that was painted white, and it's the right width so that I can die cut a square. You can just trim a square, but I really like the nice sealed edges. Like you get almost like a bit of a pinched finished edge when you die cut a shape as opposed to cutting it with your trimmer. Now I'm using this Close to My Heart set of stamps. This is the first time I've ever used Close to My Heart stamps. It's called School Year, and it was the stamp of the month. I got it for a discount or something when I bought some storage containers from them. So I just stamped out first day of school, and I use a little foam mat when I do that. That's what that black thing is. It's like the consistency of a mouse pad. It was packaging from something or other. So I have my first day of school, and that's going to serve as my third square element. So I don't want every single thing on this page to be square. I want or to be circle. So I'm going to use the photos to be one thing that's going to offset all of the circles on this page. So in my last page, I knew that my photos were what were they? They were 3x3. So I cut some squares to be 2 by like less than 3x3 and some to be more than 3x3. So I want to do the same here. So I'm just playing around with my circle cutter. As you can see, there are different tracks that affect the size of your circles, but also the blade can go in or out to give you even further control over the size of the circles that you're cutting. So I don't want to bother making any with my circle cutter that are 3 inches because I have a 3-inch punch. So I'm just trying to make them be more than 3 inches, and some of them are a lot more than 3 inches, and some of them are like 3.5, and some of them are closer to 4, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I want to cut 2 large circles for each of my pattern papers because that's what I did with my other layout. I cut 2 large squares for each of my pattern papers. So that dark green paper is new. It's not new. It's part of the hip kit from August, but it wasn't on the other page. And nor was this pattern. It also wasn't on the other page. I'm noticing here that the back side of this is the navy blue plus paper, and I wanted to use that as well. So I'm going to take actually 4 large circles from this paper, 2 for one side and 2 for the other side. And now this eyelash paper I adore. So I'm going to take one of those. And I'm thinking I might just take one of those because I'm running a little short on it, and I'd rather have, I really do like that yellow paper and pink with the eyelash looking scallops. So now I'm just putting my circle cutter away, and I thought I'd just show you how I keep it. I keep the cutter part in that blue basket, in that blue pail, I guess, and then I just hang the whole thing on my pegboard, and then I keep my cutting mats right below my stencils in the same Jetmax cube shelf. And so now I'm going to use my punches. I picked out 3 punches, but I'm actually only using 2 of them. I'm using my 3-inch circle punch and my 2.5-inch circle punch. And you can see in the centers of the circles, I have written 2 inches, 3 inches, and 2.5 inches. That just helps me remember the sizes of them. And I want to have one of the middle-sized circle of each pattern paper and 2 of the smaller size circles. So I've got 2 large, 1 medium, and 2 small in each pattern, except of course that eyelash pattern that only has 1 of the large sizes because I was running out of it. Now that leaves me with these scraps of paper that are what I refer to as Swiss cheese scraps. And I find them very cumbersome and difficult to work with. So when I'm finished punching from a particular, first of all, I try to punch all together so that I don't waste too much paper. And then when I'm finished punching from it, I'm just cutting off all the Swiss cheese parts and keeping only the chunk of intact pattern because I don't bother keeping. See what I'm doing here? I'm just going to throw that away and keep that big chunk because I can use the chunk again. Here's where I keep my punches. I keep them in a couple of different places, but basically just all laid out so that I can find them easily on shelves in my room. And it's actually directly behind me as I scrap. So I'm doing the same thing that I did last time, which is I'm basically setting out these circles so that they create like a vertical line across my layout. I'm putting them over to the side a little bit more this time than I did before, meaning over to the left side. And I'm just balancing out both size and also the patterns. And I started with the navy blue because that is the pattern that has the most impact. So I definitely want those to be noticeably balanced on the page, spread out and balanced. And I did end up changing my mind about a couple of the patterns in terms of using the one side or the other side of them. And now I'm just having a look at how I might want to layer all these squares. I really like them like this, so I'm going to take a picture so that I can get them back that way again, except maybe over this way. That allows me to kind of add a little bit. I think that'll add make it nicely balanced with something else. So I'm going to take a picture of that one. And I think my final design ends up being more like this one that you're seeing right here. And so now I think I'm going to head over to my sewing machine pretty soon, and I'm going to take you with me. Yes, I am. So I'll gather up all of these circles that I'm not going to use. I cut way more than I needed because I didn't want to have to drag out my cutting stuff again. And now here I am at my sewing machine. And so I'm going to show you a little trick for sewing circles. So you see how I'm using the middle finger. It doesn't have to be the middle finger, but a finger from my right hand just to kind of line up the circle. So sorry, it just stopped recording there for a minute. So I had to, sorry, it's a little bit jumpy there. But basically I keep that middle finger pressed down onto that part of my sewing machine, and then I can just use it as a guide and move the circle in a circular motion, and it results in a pretty, not perfectly even, but a pretty even circle. And I think I will show them to you. Well, you'll get to see me when I trim them down, but see how smooth that works? It works a lot better than trying to freehand it. It's just using your finger there as a guide. And you'll notice that I often have to adjust where my finger is. So the first time I put it down, it's not necessarily in the right place. I also try to go pretty slowly as I'm sewing. And my sewing machine actually has a little adjustment on it. I think I'm going to show it to you in a minute, of like a turtle and a bunny. So the turtle means the slow and the bunny means faster setting. And what that does is it actually controls how fast my pedal will go when I'm using it. I think I'm going to do it in a minute. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so when it's on turtle right now, even see how slow my machine is going? I had to move it up because it was way too slow. But no matter how hard I pressed on the pedal, it would only go a pretty slow speed. And so now I have to change my bobbin, so I'm going to actually turn off the camera and stop recording now. Yeah, I didn't sew all of my circles yet, but I sewed a lot of them. So here I am with them all done. I do like to include my entire process with you guys so that you get a sense of how long things take. It didn't take that long to sew these circles. And now I'm just cutting all, and you'll notice that the circles are pretty well outlined, like they're not perfect. And I did go around some of them multiple times just to make it look a little bit more casual and purposely imperfect. That's a good tip for making something look casual and purposely inaccurate, is to just go over it a couple of times and then it has that look like it's supposed to look that way. So now I'm going to do my best to reconstruct the base of this page based on my photo. So I have to pull up that photo. So there it is. And I'm just basically going to follow that photo pretty carefully. And I'm spreading out the navy blue paper because that has a lot of impact, and I'm spreading out all of the papers, but I'm particularly mindful of the navy blue paper and also that black and white paper, which is pretty different from the other ones. I'm going to place this one actually vertically instead of horizontally so that those swipes of paint go vertical. And I like that because I wanted to, well, I've been trying to make a vertically oriented layout for a while, and I keep spreading out horizontally as I design. So I thought that if this page happens to have a vertical orientation to it, having those patterns vertical will help accentuate that. But I was pretty sure that I'd fail again. I'm not even really trying very hard to make this a vertical layout because I saw what happened to the square one. And so I'm pretty sure that this one is going to spread out as well, the same way that the square one did. But that's okay. I'll revisit the vertical idea soon. So there, I did veer off a little bit from my plan. It just using my own, I guess my instincts to like make them look the way I wanted them to look. And then I needed to get a second of that mint green polka dot paper because there's one up at the top, and so that's why I did a little bit of a switch. I ended up using one less piece than I planned, but that's okay. And now I forgot that I actually planned to mat all of these before I put them together into a chunk. So I'm going to mat this, and I'm just freehand cutting, which I should have trimmed it because I'm being a little bit more obsessive about details here than I probably need to be. If I'd used my trimmer, I would have just left it. And so then I decided, instead of matting around each individual photo, I decided to mat around the whole chunk of photos. And I am glad that I outlined, like I matted the first day of school stamped square separate, because that gives me some separation between the first day of school and the photos. But now what I'm doing here is I'm matting using the same medium gray paper cardstock that I picked out for my other layout. This will tie the two layouts together, but it also helps to give the photos more impact and help them stand up off the page and not be so blending in with the patterns behind it. And so, like I did on the other page, I'm also going to pop these photos up off the page a little bit. That will cast a light gray shadow around them and further give some more differentiation between the photos and the patterns behind the photos. I'm not taking the backing off of all of these Stampin' Up! Dimensionals, just some of them. I'm pretty sure I'm going to want to pull up some of those photos and stick some embellishments underneath of them or behind them, so that's why I didn't want them glued down really well. Now, I've just zoomed in a little bit for the embellishing part. So this is where I'm embellishing. I love these bows, and I did put one on the other layout, and so I want to put one on this one as well. I think it looks really nice over there under the backpack. It feels a little bit too similar to the other page when I put it there, but when I put it on the other side, it just doesn't look as good. It doesn't have as much impact. So I am going to put it over here, even though I didn't want it to look quite so matchy-matchy or scrap lifted, but I guess it is basically a scrap lift, so it's okay if it looks similar. I'm taking out these kites because, as I mentioned at the beginning, I want to use them. I like the idea of these kites symbolizing my kids. So there's a bigger one and a little one. My kids are the same size, but one is older and one is younger, and they're kind of like flying off. And that's what going back to school kind of is for me. It's, you know, your kids go off into the world, and so taking flight and developing and moving on in the world and kind of going off on your own. Each year they get more and more independent with getting ready for school and going to school. So I thought that the kites were good symbols here. And they look a little, I don't know, I'm playing around with what to do with them. They're kind of blending in a little bit too much with the circles behind them, even though I really like that it's a contrasting shape. The edges on the kites is nicely balanced with the circles. And so I'm going through the die cut set, just looking for some die cuts that are more square and angular rather than circular. In my last page, I was picking out organic, soft, curvy type of embellishments. Here I want really straight embellishments to decorate this page. So I really like the impact that this yay is giving, but it's too big for where I wanted it to be. So I found that it already came perforated. I found that when I tore the perforated edges and layered them like this, it made it smaller so that I could still see the yay and also layer it in that little section there. So I like that. And it becomes one more squarish element that's layered with these photos and then the first day of school. So now I have a total of 4 squares all together. I like how that looks. And I keep leaning towards putting those kites up in the top of this layout because they're taking flight, and I usually like flying things to be up high and sitting things to be down low. I thought for a minute there of using that unicorn only because that daughter is obsessed with unicorns, but I thought I'd save that embellishment for another project instead. And so then I thought I'd put this Sparkle Every Day card in there and then layer a couple of other squarish type of elements above it. And I'm not going to use that camera there, but then I thought once those square layers are in there, it gives me an anchor for these kites. And then to further accentuate the kites and their shape, I'm going to outline the outsides of them as well. They already have the lines on the insides. And I like how that looks, so I'm going to glue these down. I don't have to glue the Sparkle Every Day because it's stuck to some dimensional adhesives that were between that and the photos. So I like how those kites look, kind of flying off the side of the photo. I'm going to go ahead and commit to putting that black and white bow down under the backpack. And now I want to spell out grade 5. So these are the thickers that came in the Project Life kit from Hip Kit this month. They're called thickers. No, of course they're called thickers. They're called Happy, and they make me very happy because I love them. I love the size of them. I love the color of them. I love that they actually are mint foam with a gold foil cardstock coating on them. They're just fabulous. I love them. I do wish that they came in navy blue. Maybe they do. They're very similar to the Twilight navy blue thickers that I was in love with and used up, and they're long gone and I miss them so much. So if they made these in navy blue, please let me know if you know that they do. I'm going to look into it pretty soon, I think, whenever I get a chance. So I thought because there are circles on this layout that these Hip Kit wooden buttons with epoxy stickers in the center would make a really nice embellishment. At first, I thought I would have these reflect the pattern of circles on the background, meaning have them spread all throughout the layout as if they're just one more circle that's on my background. But what I'm finding is that they pop out too much, like they're too easy to notice. And so they kind of just look like they've been thrown on, like they're too willy-nilly right now. Is that a word? It is. Willy-nilly, meaning all over the place in a not so pleasant way. So instead, I'm going to focus these circular embellishments around my 2 embellishment clusters. And that will give this page a little bit more of a pulled together look and make it'll be less random. So I'm going to put them like this, and these buttons actually have adhesive, but the adhesive tends to stay on the backing as opposed to on the button. And so so when I was kind of trying them out, I call it auditioning. When I was auditioning these buttons, I purposely left the adhesive on the backing. But now that I've decided where they're all going to go, I just am going back and taking the adhesive off of the backing, putting it on the button, and sticking it onto the page. It's actually a nice adhesive. It's not quite as stretchy as a glue dot, but it's strong like a glue dot. So I do like that, like the adhesive that they come with. And now I'm just going to repackage these thickers. And this is what I do with all of my thickers is I have these 6x12-inch bags that I bought on eBay. And I'm sorry, I don't have a vendor for you guys. It was so long ago that they're not there anymore. Like it's not in my history anymore. But if you search 6x12-inch bags, clear bags, you'll get it. You'll get some vendor who sells them. And I repackage my thickers because it's much easier to slide them in and out that way than it is in the more snug packaging that they come in. So at this point, I'm thinking I want to do some hidden journaling on this. So I took one of my leftover circle punches in the polka dot, and I just ran it through my sewing machine off screen because you guys have already seen me do that. So I just ran over and did it off screen. And now I'm taking my Mint We Are Memory Keepers typecast typewriter, and I'm going to type onto some vellum. I put the circle there just so I could keep in mind the size of it, because I am notorious for being really terrible with my visual spatial skills. And I definitely wanted this journaling to fit within the circle. So what I ended up typing was Soph, because I thought Sophie might be too big. Soph was pretty excited to return to school in a 4-5 split class. And I know that that's not very intense journaling or anything, but that was all I felt like saying about it. The fact that it's hidden, it would have been a great opportunity for me to write something more intimate, but I just didn't really have much more to say. So I used a punch. It didn't punch all that well through vellum. Vellum tends to punch a little bit better if you double it up with a piece of cardstock, especially a piece of light cardstock. But anyhow, you saw what happened there. I just trimmed around it with my scissors. And now I'm going to make a little pocket back here. And I don't know what size that circle is. So at first I went to get my 3-inch circle punch, thinking maybe I could just punch a larger circle. But it is 3 inches, so that's not going to be a larger circle. So what I decided to do was just cut a piece of scrap here from my... Anyhow, you'll watch me bumble around until I figure out how to do this. There you go. So you saw what I did there. I just wanted to make sure that I had enough of a border around it that I could glue this pocket in place. And also so that enough of it would be sticking out that I could make it, like I didn't want it to seem like I accidentally didn't trim off that circle at the top. Like I liked that it was a different size circle. So I'm journaling on a larger circle than what is on the layout. And I just wanted to kind of, play around with that idea. So what I'm doing now is I'm going off to my ribbon drawer. I'm pretty sure I have a narrow gray ribbon, and yes, I do. It's by Stampin' Up. It's a taffeta, I think it's 1/8 of an inch width. And my tiny attacher has been broken for years, and I haven't replaced it. I need to replace it. It's just, I can make it work. It's just a real pain in the butt. I hate it. But I don't hate it enough to replace it. I should just replace it. Anyhow, there we go. It's all stapled. It's just every once in a while, not every once in a while, every 2 to 3 staples, I have to open it up and dump out some staples that get broken and then restaple it. So I thought that those circles around my layout are looking a little like a little, what's the word I'm looking for? The word is contrived. They're looking a little contrived. And so I thought maybe I would add some enamel dots. And at first I thought I'll add random enamel dots in place of splatters. Because one thing, when you have some outlying embellishments that look a little too contrived or too unnaturally placed, adding splatter is a really great way to cover that up and make everything look natural. But I'm feeling like I don't want to splatter on this page because I didn't splatter on the sister page that goes with it. Literally sister page, the companion page, but it's also about her sister. So I thought maybe what I'll do is I'll add these enamel dots in the place of splatters. And they're also looking awfully contrived, aren't they? So I like them in threes like this. It's something that I haven't done for a while. I used to do it all the time, but I haven't done it for a while. So I like how they're looking, but it's not really helping my make this not look so contrived problem. So I'm going to leave it looking contrived, and I'm thinking about grabbing some splatter and splattering anyways. So here I am thinking, am I done or am I going to splatter? I am going to splatter. So I went and got my TriArt palette, which is just a large palette that I use for containing messes, and I'm going to mask with some extra packaging that I just hang on to when I take things out of their packages, and I'm looking at what I have to splatter. So the mixed media supplies that came in the color add-on are not the colors that I want to use, so I looked at my samples there. Those tags over there are just my little sample cards of what colors I have, but I ended up deciding to go with gold because gold wouldn't upset the color balance that I already have. I have a nice balance of pinks and greens already. And as I splatter, you'll notice I splattered mostly in the center and allowed some of the splatters to fall towards the edges, and that gets me a nice natural look where it looks like the splatters are coming out of, like radiating out of where my embellishments are. And some of my splatters are really, really tiny, and that's the benefit of using the nozzle and just really flicking it from quite a ways up. If you flick it too close, the splatters tend to be larger, but if you flick it from a few inches higher, it gives you this really nice light splattered look. And I really like how tiny the splatters are. You almost can't see them right now, but you'll see them better in the close-up pictures. So here's the close-up video portion where you can see how the pull-out journaling looks. And I'm just messing around now with I'm being a little bit obsessive with making sure that it's lined up the way I want it to be. But you'll see that the sewing around the circles is actually pretty straight, which is nice. It isn't always for me. So, and then there you get to see those splatters. They're just so tiny and they add so much, and they really do help all of both the buttons and the enamel dots look a little bit more naturally placed. Oh, those letters look so cute. I love the grade 5 there. Sparkle every day, grade 5. And so the title of this one is First Day of School, even though that is the same title as my last page that I did. That's okay. It doesn't really matter. They're going to be beside each other in my page, in my album. And so I'm just going to grab the first layout that I did so that you can see how these two look together. So you'll see it's basically the exact same design in terms of scraps of paper going vertically down the center of the page with a cluster of photos and some embellishments, pretty minimally placed. But the difference is, of course, the circles versus squares. And then the second page has a little bit more of that random element with the enamel dots and the splatters, whereas the other page has a much more tidy, clean look to it. So if that bothers you, having one page with splatters and one page without splatters, I could have, and I did consider adding splatters to the first page, but I decided not to because I actually kind of liked the contrast of, here's a page with the splatters and here's a page without. And so I just kind of liked it, so I left it as it was. My first impulse was to match it up though, so that would be perfectly fine as well. Of course, there's no right or wrong way to scrapbook, so whatever you like, go ahead and do. So here are the close-up photos. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.